Phantom kangaroo.
From Hong Kong, Chicago, and the city of Stoke-on-Trent, this is the Classic Lenses podcast. Hello and welcome to episode 137. My name is Simon Forster and I'm joined by Johnny Sisson and Perry G.
Please go to Perry.
Hello, Perry.
Good morning.
And hello, very, very cheerful, happy Johnny.
Hey, how are you?
We're good. And I'm beginning to wonder if actually we should start the show with you, Johnny.
Well, yeah, because the theme of the show today is wallabies, apparently. Because I just Googled this news story that I saw on Facebook earlier today, which was it's variously called a kangaroo-like animal, a wallaroo, or a wallaby, depending on which news source you look at. But I started Googling this just Wallaby, Illinois, which in and of itself was funny because you start Googling Wallaby, Illinois, and what comes up is Wallaby legal in Illinois, Wallaby for sale, Illinois. So apparently this is really a thing.
You can buy a wallaby in Illinois?
Apparently, or at least people are often Googling that because it's coming up as a suggested search.
Is there like some kind of equivalent of marsupial king in Illinois?
I mean, I wouldn't put anything past south of I-80, which is basically, I call it Confederate Illinois because it's like living in the deep South. So I wouldn't put anything past those people down there. I mean, they're the biggest export south of I-80 in Chicago is corn and meth. So they're cooking up meth with pet wallabies, apparently, is what's going on. So I just started reading these headlines from my search of Wallaby, Illinois, and the story that comes up first is Wallaroo on the loose in Peru, Illinois, leads police on wild chase.
Peru. There was somewhere called
Peru.
Is a
Peru, Illinois. It's not that far from here. It's a couple hours from here. So Peru, Illinois, in LaSalle County. There was a Wallaroo on the loose. And then next headline is police catch kangaroo-like animal after Illinois town goes apeshit searching for kangaroo. And then here's the other one. Wallaby chase in Peru. Wally rescued by this is the headline. Wallaroo chase in Peru. No, don't continue.
Wait, his name is Wally the Wallaroo?
Well, no, I would think we're going to find out. This is from the Daily Chronicle of some.
Is there actually such a thing as a Wallaroo, or is it just they covering bases? I don't. We need to have Cheyenne on, obviously, to clear this up. But I mean, to my understanding, there's obviously we know there are kangaroos, and we know that there are wallabies because we've all watched Skippy.
Yeah, and we've all watched. What's his name, Steve, the crocodile hunter. But I don't know about wallaroos. Maybe is that like when the humans were getting it on with what's the Neanderthals or something? I didn't know.
I guess it's an Australian liger.
Yeah, right. Yeah, can kangaroos and wallabies get it on successfully? Is it the question number one?
Is it like mules and horses?
Yeah.
Then? Yeah. Okay.
I guess, but they're calling it a Wallaroo. So I'll just go ahead and since we're just going to be reading emails, why don't I just read this story because this is just it's the news. It's all facts because it's from the Daily Chronicle of probably Peru, Illinois. So headline: Wallaroo chase in Peru. Owner said fisherman arrived at right time to rescue his pet from Illinois River. This is by J.C. Eustis. The lead quote is, "It was lucky of them to be there at the time because he was kind of giving up." Oh, Wally the Wallaroo was rescued from the Illinois River, but not before he took Peru police on a wild chase for roughly a couple hours Wednesday afternoon throughout town. I have never ran like that, said the pet owner's Nathaniel Drool. Nathaniel Drool. I was surprised it was hours of him just running around. Wally initially escaped from Drool's Peru home early afternoon after slipping through his harness. Quote, it was normal, just letting him outside, Drool said. He had his harness and there was one strap that was too loose on him and he got it off and took off. This was the first time. Peru police received the call at 1:15 p.m. Wednesday and immediately began the search for Wally. The Wallaroo made its way past the post office, the American Red Cross building, the vicinity of US 6 ramp to Route 251, and along the railroad tracks on Water Street. While Wallaroos moved swiftly, some up to 30 miles per hour, police kept tabs on his every move, radioing updates to each other and following it. Wally's owner and police were able to find the Wallaroo taking a short rest in some brush located between Mays Lumber and the Illinois River. While officials waited for animal control, the Wallaroo spontaneously tried to evade those close to him and stumbled down the riverbank into the river. The Peru River Rescue Team was called as Wally began treading water. It was radioed. The rescue team would take about 30 minutes to reach the location. Hang in there, Wally. Drool then went down to the riverbank to try to call Wally towards the shore, but to no avail. As police sent the team, they spotted a nearby fishing boat. Officials and bystanders flagged down the boat as the fishermen picked up Wally in a net. Drool said he was fortunate to see the fishermen and said it was a case of being at the right place at the right time. It was just two fishermen, Drool said. It was lucky of them to be there at that time because he was kind of giving up. You could see he was giving up. Wally was crated and transported to Bridgeview Animal Hospital. Dr. Allison Speyer, that's the real name of the vet, Dr. Allison Speyer, treated him there, noting he was cold from the water and had what appeared to be a few abrasions. Wally was wrapped up in blankets and heating pads to help bring his temperature to normal after spending many minutes treading the cold water. Drool said he was owned for almost 2-year-old Wallaroo for about 6 to 7 months. He has owned for 6. Okay. I've always been into exotic animals, Drool said. I love animals, and a Wallaroo is something I've always wanted. Peru Police Chief Doug Bernabé said a preliminary inquiry found the Wallaroo is owned lawfully and by a state permit. The total chase lasted 2 hours and ended safely with the help from all parties involved. It would be difficult to explain how this crazy adventure affected so many people and how all of the police, fire, city employees, and so many citizens were cheering for a rescue before it was too late, Bernabé said. With only seconds to spare, the rescue was made. Wally should be able to go home with Drool on Wednesday night and plans to return for follow-up x-rays to ensure he wasn't internally injured during the chase that had the community following along on social media. Wow. It's not all corn. It's not all corn and meth in Peru. It's wallabies also.
Man, I don't trust Australian animals.
No. Whoa. Hey. Okay. Hold on. So if you go to wallaby.company.com, you can buy a wallaby. It says right here, wallabies for sale.
Well, I've got it on Wikipedia that it's the common name for several species of I shouldn't be reading anything, should I? Moderately large macropods. Which is so when we're getting close to talking about lenses again now. It's an intermediate in size between kangaroos and wallabies. Well, there you go.
I don't like the fact that their babies are called joeys. It's too human-like. Can you imagine if bats, if baby bats were called like Jeremys or something? It's not. It's too much anthropomorphism.
Just so we all understand, this is not an isolated event apparently in Illinois. Because here's a news story from 2016. Pet wallaby on the loose in Illinois. This has happened before. Erie, Illinois. A family in Illinois has a pet wallaby on the loose, leading the entire town on a mission to bring him home. Does this sound familiar? I mean, this sounds more like a community activity than like a planned community activity. No shit. Wait a second. This is like the same story from 2016. Alexis Smith said her baby Blue, BLU, got out while she was out of town. Her dog dug a hole in the yard under the fence and Blue managed to escape. Smith said she thought Blue had been taken or eaten by a predator until community members began spotting him around town. He's actually seen behind the Casey's. He's made his way 4 miles outside of town and come all the way back in, said Smith. She bought Blue a year ago, so I'm sensing a theme here. Your first year of owning a wallaby is clearly the most dangerous. When he was just a few weeks old. Now he has become a part of the family. He's our little baby, and we want him home where he belongs, Smith said. When Blue first went missing, Smith turned to Facebook asking for help. News of missing wallaby traveled fast, sparking a lot of interest in Erie. Catherine Miller and Jennifer Ashdown, Erie community members, heard about what was happening and have been spending time looking for Blue. We're out looking for the wallaby that has been missing for a while now. We've been looking for at least a couple nights for it, said Ashdown. Miller said she just started helping with the search efforts and hopes he makes it home soon. I hope they find him soon because his family really seems nice, said Miller. Vintage Radio station in Erie also heard about wallabies on a wallaby on Facebook and tried to help. Manager Aaron Dolly said he didn't know whether to believe the story when it hit social media. I guess I had no idea there was a wallaby even in town. I'm guessing they will go to whatever lengths needed to make sure this doesn't happen again once he gets back home safe. Vintage Radio began offering a $200 reward. Listeners began calling, offering more money, raising the reward to $525 as of Wednesday. I'm just like imagining Vintage Radio like between the doo-wop songs doing fundraiser updates on this wallaby thing. Smith said the help for the community. She believes Blue will be brought home soon. I'm not giving up. I don't think anybody wants to give up. So there's still hope for Blue, Smith said. Blue is more than just a pet to Smith and her family. He is part of the family. My son calls. He never got a brother. So he called him his little brother. There's been many times where her and her sister were both in the bath and would just hop into the bath because he loves hot showers and hot baths, Smith said. So it sounds like they have more than one wallaby. If you spot Blue, Smith says...
I'm just going to say, we're going off topic now, aren't we? Because we were talking about... we were talking about wallaroos. And,
well, I think it seems like she's using this term interchangeably.
Yeah. Okay.
Anyway, they say, this is the last sentence. If you spot Blue, Smith says, try call him by name. If he doesn't respond, don't run after him or he will just continue to run. So that's the Erie, Illinois wallaby chase. So the last thing I want to say on this topic, if you don't mind, is there is a Wikipedia entry. So wikipedia.org/wiki/phantom_kangaroo. There's a whole history here in different countries of phantom kangaroos. Okay, so a kangaroo-like beast. I'm looking at the quote. So this is a normal thing. In 1974 in Chicago, 2 Chicago police officers were called to investigate a report that a kangaroo was standing on someone's porch. So this is not an isolated event, not just an Illinois thing either.
Nice.
Okay. All right. So anyway, notes in the show notes.
Okay. So that's Chicago. Perry, how's things in Hong Kong?
All right.
Any phantom kangaroos?
No phantom kangaroos. It's really early in the morning, so I can't quite tell if I'm still just having a weird dream or if we're actually doing a podcast talking about kangaroos and shit.
I was going to say, must be said, we are recording this at a completely different time of the day than we normally do. It's what time is it now? Oh, it's 10:15 in the evening for me. Johnny's clearly woken up, and it's pretty early for you. Is it about 6:15 now for you? Is it something like that, Perry?
Yeah, that's exactly right. It's 6:15. Yeah, which is totally fine because I just feel like I'm going fishing. Yeah. So Hong Kong, it's all right. I mean, the temperature has dropped quite rapidly over the last couple of days. So to me, it's comfortable, and to everyone else, it's down jacket time. So I mean, just by way of context, right? It's 16 degrees Celsius right now, which is what, like 60 something degrees Fahrenheit approximately. I don't know.
No, not that. Please, not that.
Right.
How is everybody going to survive?
So I've been walking around in a polo shirt and jeans, and everyone has been, as always, every winter, just looking at me like I'm some kind of alien. And it's really funny this time of year because all the white people in Hong Kong, they're also walking around in just t-shirt and jeans because it's like just under 20 degrees, right? Which is normal, right? Yeah. And then, the people who've lived in the tropics their whole lives, they're wearing all these thick jackets. And in the main tunnel that connects the Kowloon Peninsula where I live and the main kind of Hong Kong Island area, there's a giant billboard ad for Canada Goose jackets. I'm not even joking. It's enormous, and it is in the main traffic thoroughfare between the two biggest parts of Hong Kong. And just let it sink in how absurd that is. We have a Canada Goose flagship store in one of the biggest malls in Hong Kong, in the central business district, because when it hits 16 degrees here Celsius, apparently that is weather for a jacket that is designed for Canadians to wear when it's like -30, right? So that's where we're in right now. And the reason I bring up temperature is it's relevant because I finally bought Fixer. I can't find Ilford Rapid Fix in my local shops, so I just picked up some Coda Fix because it was all that was in stock. And usually, so we've had this discussion about our water temperature before. We don't have to reprise it, but usually when the temperature drops, it takes a couple of days for the pipes to catch up. So I'm hoping that in a few days or so, my tap water will be around 20 degrees Celsius instead of 27, so that I can just start developing film without having to do my usual ice bath crap. Yeah.
Excellent.
So that's the weather update at 6 a.m. Oh, the sun has just started to come up. It's dawn. It's dawn.
Oh, sunrise in Hong Kong.
Not sunrise yet, just dawn. I see a little bit of blue peeking up in the sky. And we're on a new, I wouldn't call it a lockdown, but we had 100 cases a day for the last week or two, and the government has shut down schools again. So anyway, that's dumb. And so I have a bit more free time. And one thing to note is that November is now over, even though No Nut November is going through to the end of the year. And annoyingly, last week, the one lens that I said I would let myself buy, which is the Rodenstock Heligon 35 2.8 LTM, there was one on eBay that popped up for a reasonable price that I mentioned. It's gone. It went in a day, and I was kind of relieved. But there's one locally at a shop that I quite like, and it's been sitting there for about a week now. And I'm so tempted. I have the day off today. I'm so tempted to go and look at it, but
you're just gonna look at it. Yeah, you're just gonna look at it. I just want to see it.
Right. Well, because I've never actually I haven't held one of these lenses in real life. Have you guys? They're pretty rare.
No, I have not. I have not.
Yeah, exactly. So I just want to look at it, kind of see what it feels like, see if it's actually, if the gas is justified. Because you guys get this thing where you have gas for something for so long, and then one of them actually pops up, and you're like, ooh, it's been so long that my gas is no longer as irrational. And I'm not, on the one hand, I still have that lingering, I wanted that so much, and now it's available, and I should get it. But then the actual feeling of gas is not so much there, right?
Yeah.
And as David Hume pointed out many years ago, it's those emotional drives that make people actually make decisions and not the kind of rational calculus. So I'm sitting here like, what do I do? What would you guys do in this situation? Rare lens, you've been gassing all year. It has now popped up.
Well, you obviously should go see it, because then you're going to have to buy it, which is what we want to hear about is when you end up, we want to hear the story about how you just went to go see it and then ended up bringing it home. So obviously you should go see it because you'll end up buying it.
Wait, no, but I mean, Simon, I remember you were talking about the same thing with another lens a little while back that you wanted it. Was it the Petri? Like you wanted it for so long and you're not sure that you want it anymore?
I don't
know. Now that it's popped up?
I know that when you were saying this, I was thinking, oh, there's something familiar here, and I don't think it will be the Petri, because I mean, I got the Petri that I was after. Oh, it was a Petri, but it was the camera. I think it was probably a color corrected.
Oh yeah, that's right. You mentioned that a few episodes ago.
Yeah, and it was for sale, and it was for sale at a reasonable price, but I've come close to buying one very, very cheaply on several occasions. But never quite paid enough, and so didn't get it. And I'm there thinking, well, if I just wait longer, then it's going to happen. But of course, the prices have gone up massively on those things since then. So my chances of getting one for £18 is increasingly unlikely unless I just drop on one. But then again, I do drop on stuff. That's the thing, and I think that's one of the best tips I can give to anybody that's just got tons of gas and just wants every lens and every camera that they can, is just don't look. Just let things just drop in front of you, a bit like the lens that's just dropped in on Perry, and then you can decide then whether or not you can go for it or not. But generally speaking, you're also trying to get it to drop at the right price, because we all like the right lens at the right price, don't we?
So you're saying I should get the lens?
You haven't told us how much it is, whether it's a bargain or not, and I don't think it is by the sounds of it.
It's not a bargain, but it is. So this lens has gone up in price a lot just because it's so rare. There's two LTM lenses that I would really like to have. One is this one, and the other is the Schneider Xenagon 35 2.8, which is just beautiful. And they're in roughly the same price bracket. On eBay, they go for around $1,000 US, and I'm like, that's way too much. So I'm looking for something, substantially less than that, but obviously, you're not going to buy one for $10. So this one is on the upper end of what I consider to be a reasonable price for this lens, and so that's like, it's like irrational gas, but it's not that bad of a price. So I think I should go see it.
We might as well just take bets now if you're going to buy it, and I mean, let's just cut to the chase here. Like, what are the odds that you're going to have this lens? Next podcast, I say it's 100%. I say if you go see the lens, you're going to buy the lens. If you see it, you'll buy it. So you should definitely go see it.
Well, I mean, have you guys spent a lot of time using Rodenstock Heligon lenses? Because but they're quite common in large format, right, Simon?
Heligons, no.
Really?
No, not at all.
Isn't there a Rodenstock Heligon lens for the Linhof Technica?
Yeah. Well, there might be. Yeah. Well, common, no. I mean, most large format lenses are Tessars of some description.
Okay. Well, anyway, then there's something about these lenses, that whenever I use them or see the results from them, they just have that like perfect balance of the characteristics I like in a lens. I don't think I've ever seen a Heligon lens that I haven't loved. And so that's part of what sort of, but then sometimes that's irrational, right? Because you're like, what's the term? You get confirmation bias. Yeah. You're like, so for example, Cheyenne loves his Schneider lenses, right? And so anything that says Xenon to him is like the best lens ever. And that turns into confirmation bias because they're great lenses, but then you're like, oh, it's a Xenon, it must be good. It's a Xenon, it must be good. And I feel that way about Rodenstock Heligon lenses. And that's why I want this one.
Yeah, sounds like you need it. And you should just get it.
Okay. There is a there's a Linhof Technica Rodenstock Heligon lens available on eBay right now, and apparently it is a large format. They're all just 6-element double Gauss.
Yeah, they're just planars basically.
But they look different, you know. These ones have a little bit of swirl, but I don't know if it's the glass they use or something. But these Rodenstock lenses are spectacular. That's all I got on that. So anyway, if I get it, I'll let you know. And if not, I will also let you know.
That's a cliffhanger there. Tune in next week, folks, to see if Perry got the Heligon.
Yes, exactly. No one's bought it so far. So the thing I know is demand is relatively low for them, although I might be driving that up. So maybe I'll do a Simon and just be more patient, because that one on eBay I should have gotten. Anyway, that lens aside, which I may or may not purchase, and that doesn't count as breaking No Nut November, by the way, because I said from the offset that was the only lens I was allowed to buy.
What?
No, Simon, back me up on this. I said the only lens I'm allowed to buy during the period is that one, right?
Yeah, I guess you did say that.
Sounds reasonable.
Okay.
I think you did say that.
Okay, good. The other thing is, I mean, this has nothing to do with what I have been doing, but I recently, just a couple of days ago, watched The Devil All the Time on Netflix, and it seems like there's been this trend of vintage cameras and lenses appearing on Netflix shows. But have you guys seen this movie?
No.
Which one is it?
The Devil All the Time.
Oh no, I'm not.
It's a kind of Southern goth style movie with Tom Holland in it and like Robert Pattinson, and I enjoyed it a lot. It's really dark and based on this book, but so it's set in the late 60s, early 70s, and in the era of the Vietnam War, and there were, I'm not going to put any spoilers because the stuff that I'm going to talk about is really not related to the plot, but there were a couple of moments that just kind of, I was watching with my girlfriend and I was making comments about the cameras and she was like, "You're such a nerd." But there's one character who is a photographer of sorts, and he shoots with a couple of cameras. I think the first one he busts out is an Exacta with a waist level finder, but then there's a scene where he's taking a photo and he's clearly using a Leica with 50 collapsible Summicron on it. And it looks like a Leica M3, but then when it was kind of a close-up of him taking the shot, I swear he was using an M6J, which is like the Leica M6 that looks like an M3. But you can tell it's an M6 because it has the battery compartment. So either it was an M6J or it was an M3 with the self-timer removed, but then it still had the little bump there. You know what I mean? Like sometimes when people remove the self-timer, there's still like the little cap, just the lever is gone. And I got so annoyed at this because I was like, yo, that's a 1994 camera, right? You can't be shooting that in the late 1960s, early 70s. This is era inaccurate, unless it's an M3, which is fine. And so again, no spoilers, but there's a scene where I can't say that. That's actually a bit of a spoiler, but the next bit is there's a scene where they're looking at negatives from this guy. And obviously he's shooting with a Leica and Exacta, so they're 35 millimeter, right? But the negatives are medium format negatives, and I got so pissed off at this moment because I was like,
Perry, but
wait. And but here's the reason why this is doubly annoying, because Netflix does have shows where the cameras are era accurate, and this movie was shot on film. It was shot on 35 millimeter film, which is unusual for a Netflix movie because it costs more money, so they should know better, right? But wait, let me finish. So they're looking at these. They're looking at these negatives, and they're medium format negatives from a Leica M3 or M6J, which is BS. Not only that, when they zoom in on the negatives, you can clearly see that it's Kodak T-Max 400, which was released in 1986, right? Not during the Vietnam War era. So like, I'm just watching this. I'm like, I'm enjoying this movie a lot, but every time there's something camera related, it just breaks me out of the immersion. And I was so irritated at this. My girlfriend was like, "You're so lame."
this is like reading reviews for the movie The Battle of the Bulge, because that movie famously had all these, big time actors in it and had pretty much nothing to do with being historically accurate. And all the military history people like freak out because everything's wrong on a granular. The thing is 99.5% of people. So it's, you're not the target audience when it gets that specific on the gear, right?
Yes.
So you have to just suspend your disbelief, and it's not a documentary. It just has to look like film enough to convince most people watching it, which it will, unless you're, a tunic button dude when it comes to the military movies. There's the same sort of people in the military history community that will complain about the tunic buttons being wrong in every movie.
Yeah, it's like the tech people who complain about the way that coding is portrayed in movies. I get that. But I mean, you can't help, like, when a vintage camera pops up, you can't help but notice these things, and then it's really irritating when it's inaccurate. Although there's a beautiful moment in the movie where the guy tells his wife that he's going into town for business, and she says to him, "Buying a camera is not business." I was like, yeah, I get that.
Nice.
Anyway, that's all for me. I've been just enjoying the camera references in that movie. So.
Well, I've got new acquisitions, and one of which I've excuse me, one of which I've I think I mentioned it last week or the week before, a Mamiya C330, and which was in a foreign country, Scotland actually, to be specific, and
almost,
yeah.
pretty soon it will be.
Yeah, it may well be. Who knows? And that's that. I now have that now, and it's not as nice as the one that I was using recently, belonging to Paul Bullock, but it's still pretty good. Although it's got some foibles about it, which I'm struggling to work out how the damn thing works at times, because I'm winding it on and sometimes it fires, sometimes it doesn't, and there's a baffle in there that I've now realised that's important, that because with it being interchangeable lenses, you can't just take the lens off the back, because you'll expose the film. So you have to close a baffle to make it light tight, and then you change it, and it's got interconnects, interlocks, and all this kind of stuff to stop you messing around. But it's probably got more things in there than it. Well, I don't know if it needs them or not, but it makes them idiot proof, and also probably impossible for idiots to use them at the same time, even if they wanted to. So I'm struggling a little bit with it at the moment. So I'm gonna take it for a service, but it needs a bit of TLC, and then my camera repairman will then explain to me how to use the camera, giving me the look as he does that. But what made me excited about this camera was the fact that it comes with two lenses. The other lens that it comes with, I'm not really going to talk that much about, is a 250mm f6.3, something like that. So a big telephoto for a TLR. And I might use it. I don't know. We'll see. But the main point of interest is the 105 3.5 lens that comes with it, and this is the I think it's the earliest version. So I'm guessing that meant that it perhaps came off a C3 or a Mamiya Flex, maybe. These you start to go into these Mamiya TLRs, and it's a real rabbit hole, and I'm trying to navigate my way around it, largely because I've been making lens caps for them. So it's trying to work out which lens has which combination, front and rear lens caps and things like that. But the interesting thing here is this is one of the older ones, possibly the oldest, because it's they're known as the Seikosa S version. So it's largely brushed aluminium is perhaps about the best way of putting it. Not quite chrome, And but the point being is, though, I've been led to believe for quite some time that this is actually a Heliar lens, which obviously made me excited. And as soon as I looked through it, I was there thinking, whoa, this is good. And it reminded me of the time when I first looked through a Rolleiflex for the first time, and I got the same kind of separation and 3D look that you get. So really, really, really pleased with it. And then Paul Bullock, who I mentioned earlier, has got one of these. I think he's just bought the lens as well. Actually, he goes to me, I think the early ones might be Tessars, Simon, which I'm pretty sure that he knows exactly what that would do to me, which I have to counter, of course, by saying that Tessars are fine, and I did say that once. And to be more specific, it's not a standard Tessar. It's not a normal lens. It's a bit longer, so therefore it's okay. It's like 50mm Tessars is where the bad things happen on full frame. Or rather, bad things don't happen. Nothing happens because they're boring and dull, and they just do what you want them to do. And who wants that in a lens? So I'm now don't actually know. I've done a little bit of digging on the internet before we came on, and I can only see things saying that it's a Heliar. But I'm just wondering if either of you guys know if it might not actually be one.
Yeah. So is it the 105 3.5D?
No. It's older than that. I think it's older than that. I think that's a later one. I think.
Okay, yeah, because the D is for the C330, and that is definitely a Heliar. Wait, so you say it's from a C3? My first question, this is just something I don't know. Are those lenses interchangeable between systems?
Yes.
So you could take a lens from a C220 and put it on a C330?
Yeah.
Oh, that's interesting. Okay, I didn't know that. And secondly, Mamiya's original manuals for those cameras contain lens diagrams for the lens systems. So I'm just on Butkiss right now trying to dig that up for you.
Yeah, I have a link for it so that you can refer to that so you can learn how to use the camera, Simon. I'll put it in the show notes for you, Simon.
Oh, you really suggesting I should read the manual?
With this camera, you definitely should. Yes.
Is it like a medalist? Read the manual before every time you use it.
Not quite, but you definitely. You're definitely gonna have trouble with it if you don't read the manual.
Okay,
for sure, 100%.
Oh, and also, sorry, go on.
No, I'm just gonna say even opening the back is weird on these. So.
Okay, so Simon,
I managed to do that. I have opened it, so I'm doing all right so far.
Well, that's good.
So not to disappoint you, Simon, but I have the manual for the C220 up here, and yes, the earlier 105 3.5 is a 4-element 3-group lens, i.e. a Tessar. So the D is a Heliar. The non-D is a Tessar.
Okay, I'm putting it away now.
Although, I mean, the more important question there, Simon, is since it is a TLR, and this is something I forgot to bring up when Johnny was talking about like marsupials. Do you have the cone for it?
Cone.
Yes, the massive cone in which you shove your face and look like a dork.
Oh no!
They didn't make those for Mamiyas. That's a Rollei thing.
So, can I ask this question, Simon?
Mm-hmm.
So, Johnny, I hear you're a cone aficionado. You like to shove your head into cones,
right? Yes.
So Cheyenne tried to. He sent me a link a couple of days ago. Before I learned about your cone affection. And the link was, I think, an eBay link selling this cone. And I basically laughed in his face, saying, I'm not going to buy that. That looks so stupid. And then lo and behold, someone who I shall not name, sent me a lovely photograph of you with your head fully in cone. And would you like to describe said cone and justify yourself?
What? No, I mean, dude, it's in the Rolleiflex accessories catalog. It's a legit Rolleiflex accessory. What can I tell you? It's a binocular focusing hood. It makes your Rolleiflex. It's like HD TV. It's like it turns like it turns your waist level finder into like it's like you're looking at HD TV in 3D.
Yes, I mean I get it, and it makes sense because it's basically like a large format, cape, but for a Rolleiflex. But
but that's not at all what it is. It's literally an optical viewing device. So you are now, instead of looking at the ground glass with one eye, right? It's giving you stereo vision on the ground glass. It's two lenses, so it's stereo vision on the ground glass. So it literally makes everything look 3D. It's insane.
Wait, there's optics in it?
It's yeah, man. It's optics. It's a binocular focusing hood. So it's optics which are adjustable for, I guess, interocular distance or whatever. So yeah. No, it's an optical viewing device. So you're getting 3D stereo vision on the ground glass, which if you haven't ever tried one, it is mind blowing. So the reason I use it is because I can't see my ground glass anymore. So it's really, really difficult for me to focus any of my rollies, even with the magnifier, because my eyes are just so bad for close now. But with the binocular hood, I can focus perfectly. And not only can I focus perfectly, it's a completely different experience than looking at the ground glass with just the normal way you do it, because it's like, I don't know how else to describe it. It's literally binocular stereo focusing. So it is a legit accessory. You can get them for under $100, and I highly recommend getting one and trying it, because it will blow your mind. And it looks, and the upside is, it looks like you're walking around with some kind of high-end German bondage gear. So, which is a good look for anyone. I mean, I think that's the part that I'm taken aback by. I get it. I mean, I didn't know there were optics in it, and that does make it cool. But when you have this thing on it, it literally doubles the size of the Rolleiflex, and you're sticking your head into this. I mean, my thinking is, if you're going to use this thing, you might as well shoot large format. No. It's 100 times less inconvenient than shooting large format, because this thing just snaps on. I mean, it, like everything Rolleiflex, it is designed to work perfectly with the camera, and it latches right over the waist level finder perfectly, right? Just as you would expect it to. I don't know. I can't say enough good things about it. It's an insanely useful piece of equipment. I mean, if for no other reason than it makes it easier because it's shading the ground glass. So, it is like in that sense, like a dark cloth. Mm-hmm. Right. But that's where all comparisons end, because it's an optical viewing device. It would be like if you had a dark cloth for large format, but it was like a stereo viewing device for your ground glass.
Right. With like two loops built in.
Yeah. Which somebody probably makes. I mean, I know they make those, if you want to be a complete pussy, they make those right angle viewing things. So it's not upside down and backwards, which what's the point of shooting large format if you're going to do that?
Well, the point of large format is not to reverse everything and piss you off.
Of course it is. Of course it is. It's to be as difficult as possible to take a photo. Come on.
Okay, fair.
So if you use a right angle viewing device, you're an absolute pussy. If you're doing large format, that's number one. But if it had optics in it, it would then be somewhat more legit, right? Because it would at least be doing something more than just giving you baby training wheels for your camera that you can't use because you're a pussy.
Okay.
So it's 100 times better than a focusing cloth. They do make Rollei. They also made these. We had about a half dozen of them at Central Camera that burned in the fire. But they did make these just black cardboard, leather coated board folding. I mean, just basically a little smokestack that you could look down into that would just shade the ground glass. I think they were mainly for Rolleicords, which are dimmer anyway. So it would make make it much easier to see the ground glass because you're just cutting all the ambient light out. Mm-hmm. But this is actually doing way more than that. I mean, it's got the two lenses in it, so it's a completely different thing.
Okay. I accept that as a thorough defense of the cone. I had no idea it had glass in it. That's kind of
yeah. So for less than $100, Perry,
I'm not. There's no way in hell I'm carrying one of those.
Yeah, it's chump change. Just get one and try it and return it. You could buy it and return it.
It's not the price. There's no way in hell I'm walking around using one of those.
Okay, all right. So this is from the place where everybody walks around with a mask on even before the pandemic shit, right?
Yeah. Yeah,
looking stupid.
It's not the look of it. I don't like carrying extra stuff around in my camera bag.
It folds flat. You can slide it into your pocket. It folds like literally. It folds like I'm trying to. How big this thing is? I'm trying to. It's like. I mean, it folds down like an envelope. So it takes up like no space, and it's not heavy. It's like a little accordion folding thing.
Okay. Can you use it with glasses?
Of course you can use it with glasses.
All right. If I see one, I'll look at it.
Buy it?
No.
Buy it, try it, return it. It's eBay. You're supposed to fuck everybody over on eBay. Just do it.
I'm not...
I just decided I didn't like it. I'm going to send it back. It's fine. You can do that.
Okay. If I see one of these, I will try to suppress my laughter and think about.
You got to do it.
Think about this. Oh, but that must be weird. Like, how do you compose a picture when it's in like stereo 3D? Isn't that bizarre?
It's way easier. That's the whole point. It's way easier because you can focus because you're using both eyes.
But when you're using both eyes and you got because your photograph is a 2D image, right? And so when you got the thing with stereo, it's gonna have like that weird pop, and then when you move around, you're gonna get that sort of parallax difference between your eyes, creating like those 3D offset effects that are not going to show up in the final image.
No. It doesn't do that at all. It doesn't do that at all.
Not necessarily in terms of like the actual image that comes out, but just your perception of it. That would trip me out.
It's not like that at all. It doesn't. I'm telling you, there's no down. There's no like weird downside.
You know those things that people post on Facebook where it's like a 3D photo, which is basically just a 2D photo where the subject moves around when you turn the phone. I'm imagining it being like that.
It's not like that. It's not like that. You have to try one because until you try one, you won't understand.
That's what they say about meth.
Or wallabies.
Fair. So, Simon, my original point was I was asking, do you have one of these for the Mamiya? I guess it does not exist. And therefore, you can't simulate the large format experience.
No, it's not large format experience with one of those things, is it? That's the point. It's not. And
no, not at all.
Ably explain why it isn't. It just, unless you just mean it makes your camera larger, and that means large format. I don't know if that's the point you're making.
Yeah,
it doesn't even make your camera more inconvenient like large format. It's not like either one of those things.
Okay.
So,
all right. Let me just read since nobody's going to be happy until we explain this fully. I was going to read from the Rollei Practical Accessories Manual, which is the Bible of all things that attach to a Rolleiflex, right? So this is what it says: the binocular focusing hood. The leather hood, and it's got an item number there, which is 1302. Fitting over the focusing hood fulfills a dual purpose. The binocular magnifiers show the viewing image at a 2x magnification and permit unrestricted viewing without any reflections from extraneous light. It is recommended for Rolleiflex models with ground glass screen and non-detachable hood, not permitting the use of a prism finder. It permits observation of the 2x enlarged image with both eyes. The close-fitting hood keeps out all side light and increases considerably the brightness of the viewing picture. Both magnifiers can be adjusted individually to the interocular distance. They snap into position when opening the hood. It closes and folds flat to the size of an eyeglass case in one simple operation. So there you go. The size of an eyeglass case is what I was looking for.
All right.
That's all I have to say about that.
There's just no excuse for you not to get one there.
No, there's no. You can find one for under $100. It's chump change compared to that Heligon you're going to buy. So with the money you're saving on getting the great deal on that Heligon, which no doubt you will, you can use some of that extra money that you've been saving up all through No Nut November to buy a under $100 binocular focusing hood for your Rolleiflex, and then you can strut around Hong Kong like a complete badass with a piece of German bondage gear stuck to your face, and everybody will think you're awesome. So there you go.
All right, sold. Okay, German bondage gear. That's the new look for 2021.
German bondage gear. And look, the Germans have proven that anyone can do bondage, right? I mean, it doesn't matter if you're like a 60-year-old kind of fatty couple. It doesn't matter. Bondage is for everyone. Bondage and nudity is for everyone, and the Germans have proven it. It's healthy. It's natural. There's no reason you shouldn't do it, just like a binocular focusing hood for your Rolleiflex.
Right. Okay. Well,
all right. I'll put some good German nudist bondage porn in the show links for you all, just to prove that this is all true.
So back to you, Simons.
Yes. So next acquisition, and it's actually another Tessar, but it's a large format lens, so it's okay. And it's a Kodak Hexar 7.5 inch 4.5, so that's about 190mm 4.5. I did the sum for you earlier, Perry, because as soon as I said that, I saw you look into the ceiling and doing the calculation in your head there. And it comes with its own shutter. And it looks like it works. Looking forward to actually attaching this to a camera. But what I actually want to do, I want to put it onto a large format camera, but I want to do something else with this because I'm looking at this 190mm 4.5. That's pretty reasonable, and obviously it's got an enormous image circle on it, far more than I need it for what I'm thinking about. But there's a camera that I would like to use more, especially for landscape photography, and I'm really restricted with it. One, because of I've only got 2 lenses for it, but secondly, the focal length, the equivalent focal length that I would like, just doesn't it just doesn't exist with it. And I'm talking about the Hasselblad, and so I really like shooting 135 for landscape and picking out details. And you get so you can go for 120mm, which is effectively the portrait lens. Then there's the 150, and I think I'm trying to remember, there might be more than 150, and I think one of them might be really expensive or whatever. Or it's a bit slow, I can't quite remember. But after that, I was thinking to myself, you know what, a 200mm would be absolutely right. What is the Hasselblad 200mm? And there isn't one, because you've then got a big jump through to 250. And so I'm thinking, well, with a regular Hasselblad, there aren't too many things you can adapt to it, because you need a shutter in the lens. And hey presto, I've got a shutter in the lens, and I've got the focal length that I was after, probably closer to what I actually wanted it to be as well. So I just need to find a way of fitting some kind of helicoid to it, and then putting that into some kind of extension to get it to the right length away from the focal plane, and then make myself an adapter that will go on to effectively a body cap, really, which is something I can do. And then I've got myself a 190mm 4.5 lens for a Hasselblad, and I'm pretty excited about that.
Yeah. What format is that originally for, that lens?
4x5.
Oh, okay.
Although
so I
say that, I'm not 100% sure. I'm not actually gone into it. I mean, it could be half plate, but I think it's a 4x5.
It's an f4.5.
Oh, sorry, it is a 4. Yeah, it's an f4.5, and I think it's for 4x5 or 5x4, depending on how you wish to say it.
Ah, okay, that's neat. So you're not going to get any crazy like swirliness if you put it on 4x5 then?
No, and I don't think I'll get swirliness with it anyway. It's I mean, it's a well corrected, almost certainly Tessar formulation lens. So it'll just do the job. But of course, with it being
I guess swirly is not the right term. But when you use a lens that has an image circle that's larger than the format, so within the intended format, it's normal, and then outside there's just this area of just like crazy swirl.
Yeah. Right.
That's more of sort of what I had in mind if it were designed for a smaller format. I guess like if you put on 8x10, maybe you'll get what I'm talking about.
Yeah. Well, I think it might cover 7x5 quite possibly. I don't know. I mean, it's a chunky lens anyway. So, but yeah. So that could be fun. And
is it silver?
Mainly.
Like chrome. Okay, so I'm looking at one on a large format thread, and I'm trying to figure out which lens specifically you're talking about. And yeah, apparently we'll cover 8x10 close up at least.
Oh right, okay, that's cool.
Yeah,
yeah. Well, I like Hexar lenses because they're cool. And I've got a 152mm one which I've used a couple of times, which I really like, and it's been serviced. So I'm looking forward to getting that one back. So that's two Tessars I seem to have bought, and I'm quite happy with. And then
wait, how are you going to get that? How are you going to get that on a Hasselblad? Do you have your own sort of like adapter for a lens board?
No. I mean, the thing, it's got its own shutter. So what you actually do, you need to your adaptation adapts to the shutter rather than the lens.
Right.
And so I'll fashion some kind of, I'll 3D print something so I can just screw this in. I mean, normally you would use a retaining ring. Well, a couple of things there. I haven't got a retaining ring for it, which is a bit of a problem I've got there. So I'll need to get a retaining ring for a size number 4 Acme, which is not the same size as Copal sizes, I do not believe. I think it's like the American stroke English system. So that's going to be a bit of a pain to find a retaining ring that will fit it. But that's not too much of a problem because there is a thread on there, and I can print a cylinder for it, which will be just the right size to actually friction fit it in there, and it will fit in there.
Right. And that's a focal length where you won't have a problem getting infinity.
Oh, God, no.
Right.
No, not at all.
Well, because, I mean, it's interesting because I was thinking while you were talking about this, in my sort of quest to adapt various lenses of that ilk to Pentax 6.7 and things like Mamiya 6.4.5, one of the things that I run into is difficulties getting infinity sometimes because either the mirror is hitting or it's just not, I got to put it deep inside the throat of the camera.
Yeah.
Which then it occurred to me that one of the reasons why the Bronica S2 that I've been using, that Nick Lyle has been adapting a bunch of stuff to and from as well, is such a good platform for adaptation. Apart from coming with a helicoid, the mirror is designed in a way that it doesn't flip up.
Yeah.
It slides down. And so as a result of that, that's why the lenses can protrude much further into the body. So if you look at like the standard 75 Nikkor lens, you have about this much of the lens that, about a centimeter or two that comes out of the body. And then the rest of the lens is deep inside this sort of Hasselblad shaped body. But it works because the mirror slaps down. And so you get a lot more flexibility there in terms of trying to get infinity. I mean, that's not an issue at your focal length, just as a general adaptation to 6x6 SLRs on medium format. I actually think the Bronica S2 is maybe the gold standard for that. The trade-off is the flange distance is pretty long, but you can get the lens right inside the camera.
Yeah.
A bit of a tangent there.
No. But yeah, no, it wouldn't be a problem adapting this to just about anything, I don't think. So that neatly brings me to another lens that I bought, and I bought it because it sounded cool. And again, it was the right kind of money. So what could I do? I couldn't help myself. But we all need a 500mm f4.5 in our lives. So I got one. And this one's made by Lights of Leica fame. And I'm gonna just place it down on the table now. I don't know if that resonates, the weight of this thing. And I think I did actually weigh it, and I think it weighs about 4 kilograms, something like that. It's really, really properly heavy. And its proper name is it's an EPAR, that's EPAR 500mm f4.5, and made in Wetzlar in Germany. And it lacks an aperture. And that's because it's a projection lens of some description. I'm not entirely sure what this was projecting at any point, but that's what it is. It is a projection lens, and again, that pretty much means it's probably it's probably a Tessar. I think this one. I mean, a lot of projection lenses are triplets, but I think this one's a Tessar from what I can find out. But there's not a huge amount of information out there on it, but it's enormous, and the image circle. I do the test where I go to a back wall in my lounge, which faces south, and then so the light comes in through the windows, and then you can project the view from outside on the back wall, and the image circle's enormous. It's absolutely enormous. It's like properly ultra large format.
Maybe it was for projecting stuff on like drive-through movies or something.
Who knows? I mean, but you could easily use this on some kind of ultra large format panoramic camera, and anything you like, except just the sheer weight of it. I mean, how you would actually mount this lens into something with some kind of bellows system? You need scaffolding. I mean, it's just so heavy, So, but yeah,
I wonder if there's a system where you can have like dual tripod. For movies they have those not those slides, but there's those sort of tripod-y things that allow you to move something back and forth. And I wonder if you could have something set up with basically the lens on a tripod, the camera on a tripod, and then basically like slide the camera back and forth rather than move the lens.
It sounds like you're talking about standards, front and rear standards that you would get on the large format camera there. Except
no, but if this is so heavy, it'll break that off of the camera. So I'm thinking like you have the lens on a so sort of like a standard, but like a tripod version of that. Yeah, with a tripod on the front and the back. Yeah. I don't know anything about large format, but that kind of setup seems like it would work.
I could actually imagine how you would actually have the lens would be effectively stable and in one place, and because the rest of the camera, it just needs to be a light tight box. So as long as the lens is actually stabilized, you could just move the rest of the camera back on some kind of either a bellows system or like a two boxes that fit inside each other. That kind of process, which is now making me think this is actually more. I might be able to do more with this than I thought, and perhaps like shoot some paper, do it as a paper negative or something like that. Because I mean, a sheet of film that this is capable of exposing will be an absolute fortune, but some relatively large paper, photographic paper, is certainly doable. Oh, John! Whoa, John! Yeah, have you got the voice changer on there, Johnny?
No, why is it weird now?
Oh, it was then.
Oh, okay. My audio dropped out for a minute or so here, and then you guys came back. So
right. So
maybe it was weird.
You asked me what the name of the lens was.
Yeah.
It's it's a Lights and it's an EPAR 500mm f4.5.
So it's probably a process lens. That's what it sounds like.
Yeah,
it's some kind of projector lens, I think.
It's probably for a commercial camera.
Yeah, it's got a focusing mount as well. Which is nice.
Yeah.
Simon, I think what you should do with that, rather than try to shoot large format with it, is get the fixed lens set up and then adapt it to micro four thirds.
Hey, well, for these circumstances, I'll crack out the Pentax Q.
Oh yeah, and then go birding with it, because then you can just move the lens. The camera is just this tiny little speck on the back. Just move the lens around. You got an effective What's the crop factor on a Pentax Q?
There are different versions, but I think the one that I've got, I think it's like about 4.8.
Awesome. Factor. Then you got like a 3,000 millimeter lens.
Yeah,
at 4.5.
I did mount it once on a MTO 1000, which is actually, with it being Russian, 1000 doesn't mean it's 1,000 millimeter. It's actually an 1100 millimeter mirror lens, and I put the Pentax Q on that on my best heaviest possible tripod in the world. And it was just somebody walking within 10 feet was enough to shake it. It was difficult. It was very, very difficult to do anything with it. But I did get an exposure out of it, and I took a photograph of a JCB digger in the distance, which I had no idea even was there. And I can see this all the time. It just sits there, but I never knew it was there. But I did when I put that setup on it. So I put it to good use.
Oh, that's awesome.
And think about that. We probably won't. We'll do this in chronological order, but we have quite a few emails again. People keep emailing us, so I think this might be a good time to do that, because I know that at least one email is talking about telephoto lenses, but we won't necessarily talk about that one. We'll do them as we normally do in chronological order. So are you teed up, Johnny?
I am. Probably not going to get through all these because it's nearing 6 o'clock here. Well, it's 5 o'clock here, so I'm gonna have to go before too long. But do you want to start? Where do we want to start? I have them probably in. Let's see. Do I have them in reverse chronological order? I have Mr. Rodman first. Is that reverse chronological order, or is that correct?
I think that's the oldest one, yeah.
So should I start there?
Yeah, sounds good.
Okay, so we have an email from official Rodman / Rod Maker for the Classic Lenses podcast. And that is, of course, J.D. Wagner. And so he wrote us from jdwrods at AOL.com. And subject is shout back. And he says, "Hey guys, thanks for reading my email on air and the kind words about the newsletter. No need to read this on air, but I guess we could do it anyway. But there are some questions. There was some question about the picture of the fish in the newsletter. The fish is a wild male brook trout in pre-spawning colors. The brook trout is one of the most beautiful fish, and the sexually mature males in the fall become even more gorgeously colored and get that nice orange belly. I get like that too. It's a way of attracting females. It works. Like owning a Leica, I guess. I wouldn't know. By the way, that was shot with an Auto Takamura 35 2.3, another lens that a reader mentioned today. And one of my favorites, really amazing. Man, those have gone up in price. Yes, they have. Well, it's true some trout are stocked. Many people, myself included, only fish for wild fish, and a huge proportion of fly fishermen practice what's called catch and release, wherein the fish are immediately released unharmed. Perry, in the USA, my name is pronounced Wagner, but I'm fishing in Germany, they say Wagner. Either is acceptable, and I must say you nailed my annoying Midwestern nasal accent to a T.
Wagner.
I'm honored. I'm honored and LMAO to have somehow become an official CLP rod maker, and laughing even harder at Johnny's comments at the end about the election /COVID. If y'all ever want to go fishing, I'll be happy to take you. Thanks to all. Thanks and all the best. JD Wagner. Attaching some pics in full res glory. The BW pics are with rapid rectilinear from a Kodak autographic folder. Love the baby poop glow, and it's pretty darn sharp stop down. All right.
So, on just a technical note, Johnny, I'm not sure we should read out their email addresses at the beginning of the.
We can bleep that, but everybody, I mean, he's got a web page. I mean,
yeah, this is newsletter stuff. Yeah, so I think in this case it's all good.
Yeah.
But I mean, thanks, JD. That's super cool, and that brook trout is beautiful. But I didn't know this dude was also into like Kodak Vesutan pics, which is mad cool because that's what these photos that he's attached are.
Now Perry's really impressed. JD, you take Perry fishing, you probably get a hand job too.
Okay, so next email.
Okay, sorry, Perry. I'm just giving you a hard time.
All good.
All right, Gary Florzak wrote us on the 24th of November. Perry's MP and thinning out gear, he says. So Gary says, greetings, CLP trio. I hope you're all staying healthy and well. Congrats to Perry on his MP acquisition. Perry, it sounded like this was a quote-unquote grail purchase for you. Does a purchase like this make you consider moving some of your existing gear that you might not utilize? If not, is there still something out there that you would? I posed the same question to Johnny and Simon. Admittedly, my experience with photography gear is limited. I have bought and sold what I feel has been plenty of gear and that made sense at the moment, but later realized it didn't fit my shooting style or needs. Yes, I am always interested in what drives people. Yet I am always interested in what drives people to acquire more gear, and if they have any self-imposed limits. Sending good cheer to you all. Always looking forward to the new episode and banter. Gary Florzak, Chicago. And he has an Instagram address here and so forth and so forth. He is anagrammography.
Anagram of gray.
Anagram of gray, not anagrammography. Anagrammography could be an interesting thing. That could be an actual thing.
Yeah, study of anagrams.
Yeah, but photographically. Photographic anagrams. All right. Well, I'm far less interested to look at your Instagram now, Gary, but that's all right. We'll still look at it. No, I'm kidding. It sounds awesome. And I'm sure I must have met Gary at some point. He's in Chicago. Maybe not. I don't know. All right. Anyway.
So you're going to start selling some gear now?
I don't think so. I mean, this concept of a grail purchase is, I have some friends who talk in these terms, and I think that term lost a lot of meaning for me a long time ago, because that's not how gas works, right? If you have something that's like the holy grail and the pinnacle of what you want to get, after you get that, then at least for me, I just start wanting the opposite end of the spectrum. So a lot of the times after I get something really, really, really nice, I then want to get stuff that's really, really, really crap to play with as well. Because really nice is boring, So if someone gave me like a Zeiss Otis, I would probably shoot once with it and then go get like a broken lens off a folder or something and have more fun with that. So no, I think the things that would make me consider moving on my existing gear would not be purchasing something superior. It would be stuff like space considerations or things like that. I mean, I get that for most normal people, this is how it works. It's like, oh, I just bought a new camera, I should sell my old camera. But I think I'm assuming that for the three of us, that is no longer or never has been.
What is this selling cameras thing you're talking
exactly.
about?
Well, I've got a slightly different take on that, because I'm in the same place. I really don't like the idea of selling stuff, including the stuff I buy to sell, and which I will do one day, and I keep saying that. But I was having I got a text message from Jeremy North earlier this week, which is, it was always a case of, oh, okay, here it comes, and it wasn't criticism of the show or anything like that. He goes, do you want to buy my Contax G2 Millennial kit in black? And
Millennial,
yeah, whatever it's called. It's Millennium. Is it Millennium?
Does it come with a giant sense of entitlement?
Does it dress like a total hipster?
Yeah. So yeah, and I'm referring to the kit that he lent me, and I borrowed, and I shot it in Edinburgh and Liverpool, and it was every bit as good as I ever could have hoped it could be. And then you may also remember that I had Gilbert Townsend lent me one for most of this year, and it sat on the shelf, and I didn't use it once. And my conclusion from that is it's a travel camera, and that's all I would ever want to use it for. And I haven't really been doing much travel like most people, so it doesn't really work for me. But obviously I want it, but it's also way too expensive for me, which then made me think, well, okay, well, let's think. Well, there's the actual kit that he's talking about is more than just the plain kit. There's two G2s, there's a G1 in there, there's duplicate lenses, and I think, well, I don't need all of those. But even so, even after I would sell on the things that I didn't really need or want for that matter, I still wouldn't have enough money to be able to afford it. And therefore, the next point there is, well, what do I sell? And and I think that this is more to the point. I'm probably more motivated to sell equipment, to buy equipment, than I am now. I've got the equipment and I don't need this other stuff anymore. So that's my general take. And by the way, the way the conversation went, because Jeremy was thinking I'm not using it. Why do I need it? And I did the decent thing and talked him into keeping it, even though he doesn't use it, which is the right thing to do. And I think you'll both agree with that.
Yeah, that makes sense. By the way, there's a full Contax G2 black kit for sale here in Hong Kong locally at the same shop that has the Rodenstock Kilogon. It's got a 2145-90 kit. Just FYI.
Yeah, see it. I would have no problem if he's not using it. I would no problem selling that because he's going to get serious bank for that thing. He'd do really well selling that thing.
Yeah, don't listen, Jeremy, because it's at some point I will be successful enough to buy it off you.
All right, but just save it for Simon to sell it to, of course.
Yeah. That's the right thing to do.
Right.
Also, the other thing is Gary's email is all about these sort of grail purchase idea, right? And I will say to that getting the MP for me has at least extinguished any lingering Leica gas. Like Rob Jameson keeps sending me pictures of black paint Leicas that he really wants to get, and I look at them, I'm like, oh, that's cute, but I have a black paint MP now. So the gas that it's extinguished is I have had this, long-term Leica gas, and I just don't have it anymore. I'm like, yeah, there's nothing. I don't need another Leica. No one needs another Leica, but there's just no desire for that anymore. So now I'm just like, oh, if I'm going to get stuff, it's going to be more kind of exotic or weird stuff. I think in the same way with like a Contax G2, once you got that, you wouldn't. The gas for sort of Contax, well, there's not anything else that's quite like it, but you know what I mean? Like it extinguishes your gas for things of that subcategory.
Well, I suppose the point there would be, would I sell my M2, which I equally don't use, and I've got less desire to use, and I still probably wouldn't sell that because it's just.
But they're not the same. Nice. They're not the same type of camera, right?
Well, in my mind, they are. Because they've got a similar use for me. They're travel cameras. I class the Leica as a travel camera.
Right. Okay. No. Fair enough. Yeah. I guess there's not a lot like the G2 and G1. They're pretty unique as interchangeable autofocus, weird rangefindery things. But like, is there anything else that's like it? I'm trying to think of a comparison here, because obviously if you got a G2, you would feel no gas for a G1.
And I've got no gas for a G1, even though I don't have one. I really don't like a G1.
No, that's fair enough. I can't think of any other cameras that I would consider of that ilk. There's nothing quite like the G2 or G1. Yeah, so the analogy does not hold.
Yeah.
What about the what's it called? I'm spacing on the name. The autofocus, the other autofocus interchangeable. Not interchangeable. The M mount. No, it's not M mount. The fixed focus.
One of those Olympia cameras.
No. I'm completely. I don't think about cameras at all anymore.
I don't think a fixed focus anything would be a
the
Contax G2 category.
The fixed lens, full frame.
The Konica Hexar.
Yeah, the Hexar.
Oh, the Hexar AF.
Yeah.
Oh, I guess.
Yeah, the Hexar AF. Exactly.
Yeah. Except it's fixed lens.
Yep. So what?
That's the big difference.
But so what? Now we're back on this travel camera thing, which I don't get at all. I don't get it all.
Yeah, but I've used it with the I've used it with the 21mm and that viewfinder, and adored it.
Yeah. I mean, the Konica Hexar AF is. I love that camera, but I would take a Contax G2 over it.
You can keep both.
Day, I think
you guys can have them both.
The Hexar AF is cool.
I don't need one.
I don't know, man. The Hexar AF I think is one of the coolest cameras, but every time I hold it, I just don't like the way the ergonomics are set up. If it were just if the controls were a little different, I think it would be. I would adore that camera, but yeah, I would take a G2 over that. But you're right; it's a similar, ethos, right? It's like a rangefinder with It's an autofocus rangefinder.
Yeah, I mean, right.
Yeah.
I don't know. I can't be bothered either one of them. Okay. Are we on to the next one, or?
Yeah. I'm just wondering if you're short of time, should we do you want to try and find that one about because I've already alluded to it now. There's a classic telephoto.
Classic super telephoto lenses. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Let's make a note that we've done these two. Classic super telephoto.
Yeah, just trying to remember where that is.
Yep, it's the third from the top in terms of most recent.
Ah, yeah, from Michael.
Yep. Michael Gossett?
That's one.
Okay. All right, we'll do that one. So Michael Gossett wrote us, subject, classic super telephoto lenses, and I will not read his email address. Good point, Perry. Okay. Hello, all. I have been listening to the podcast for about a year now. Since you all are going to the great outdoors to fish, or more realistically stuck at home, why not try one of the most difficult and frustrating forms of photography with legacy lenses, birding? When I first started adapting lenses, I tried finding a cheap birding lens. I've since moved on to an old FD 300mm 2.8L, but still bring out some of the lighter and cheaper lenses like the Canon FD 400mm 4.5, 300mm f4 non-L, FD 300mm 5.6, and Sigma Apo 500mm 7.2 manual focus version for some hikes. I think that the Canon FD 400mm 4.5 is probably the best budget choice out of the lenses I've tried, but it has some noticeable CA. I realize you probably don't shoot super teles often, but what are your thoughts about various classics among them? There are so many I have not tried, such as the Terra 3 300mm 4.5 photo sniper, and have good reputations. Michael.
Right. Well.
Oh man.
I've got a few things to say on this. Well, but Perry, have you got much to say on this subject?
Yeah. Because I used to be really into birding, And when I travel back to Canada, I still do it. So I definitely have stuff to say on this, but you go first.
Okay. It's interesting just reading through this email when it says like he's using a Canon FD. We don't actually know what camera he's using, by the way, but actually they're all Canon lenses, so he might be on film, might be on digital, both. But certainly the Canon FD 300 2.8L has got a great reputation, and there's I'm not sure if that's the same as the fluorite version or whether that might be a little bit older, which is also meant to be pretty legendary. I used to do a lot of birding with manual focus lenses, and that came largely because I was just interested in that for a period of time, but also I was this is when I first got back into photography back in, I don't know, about 2012 or so, and I had a Olympus EM1 Micro Four Thirds camera, and I think I had I can't remember what lens I was using, or maybe I was borrowing a lens or whatever. But when I was trying to do birds in flight, as soon as there was anything going on behind other than just clear sky, the autofocus would, fast as anything, lock onto a tree, which I would have already gone past instead of staying with the bird, and it used to be hugely frustrating. And you did all different things and settings and so on, and it just wasn't very good at that kind of photography. It was as simple as that. And I thought to myself, you know what, I'd actually do better if I was just manually focusing. And I wasn't totally into manual focus lenses at the time, but I just thought I could just do a better job, and that's exactly what I did. And I think I got myself an Olympus 300 4.5 OM. Which was pretty good. Interesting is he was talking about chromatic aberration on the on one of the Canon lenses there, but that was something I used to get a lot with this Olympus, and it was the older silver nose lens, so the coatings aren't going to be as good as on the later version. So I don't know if the later versions are better at chromatic aberration, but this was generally quite poor if the light wasn't great and you were shooting wide open. Certainly if you were shooting stop down in better weather, then the problem would go away. But what I was finding though is when I made the switch from Micro Four Thirds to full frame, a 300mm lens, you get an equivalent field of view as a 600mm on Micro Four Thirds because of the crop. I was finding like I just wasn't getting close enough anymore. And there's actually another benefit of Micro Four Thirds when you're shooting birds in flight, is because if you need to be using, say, a 600mm lens, for instance, in terms of equivalence, if you're shooting it on Micro Four Thirds, you're actually shooting a 300mm lens, but you're getting the same view, but you're also getting the benefit of actually a slightly deeper depth of field. So therefore, if you've got a bird in flight, and so you've got your 300mm lens with a 300mm depth of field, as opposed to a 600mm lens with a 600mm depth of field, it's a little bit easier to actually fit the bird in to that depth of field that you've got, because you've got a little bit more to play with in the first place. So that was something I found to be easier to use Micro Four Thirds for that. But the other thing you mentioned that you moved on to, well, you quite often crack open the not literally the 400 4.5 Canon FD, which I've used as well, and I loved that lens. I actually personally think that's if you're shooting full frame, it's about as good as it gets. Because it's not too heavy. It's certainly lighter than the 300 2.8. I've used to have the Tamron, the later version of the Tamron 300 2.8, and I've used the one of the Nikon 300 2.8 of the same era, which was excellent as well. There wasn't really much between them. I think the Nikon handled better, but optically there was no difference between those two. But I did gravitate a lot to that 400 4.5 because it's not too heavy, it's sharp. I've heard people talk about chromatic aberration with that lens. I never really got it, so it could be more of an issue with sample variation there, because I never suffered from that. It was a really good lens. I sold it ultimately because eventually I just had enough. I'd go out with a friend, and he would have an autofocus camera, a proper one, not a Micro Four Thirds Olympus, and somebody just lent me a camera and goes, just use that, and it was a pretty old Nikon DSLR. It might have been like a D80 or something like that, and a bird just flew out. I just pointed the camera towards it, got the thing, got 3 photographs, and it disappeared. And there's just no way I would have actually got that manually focused. But I actually think that spending like 18 months of manually focusing birds in flight made me a better photographer as a whole, because I could actually. It was getting the bird in the frame quickly and in focus was critical with manual focusing, and you'd set the focus distance to be to match where you think the bird's going to be, and all that kind of stuff. And those are things you can do with autofocus as well. You've mentioned some great lenses there. I can't really add any others other than the 2 others I've mentioned there. I would say keep away from mirror lenses for birds in flight. I've done it.
Yeah.
And I really wouldn't want to do it again. That's my take on it.
Whoa, I have a lot of things to say in response to that, Simon. I was actually going to say that from the beginning that I have kind of the opposite attitude towards birding, but that by the end, what you said at the very end is kind of nails it for me. But a few things there. Number one, this idea of like more apparent depth of field to work with on Micro Four Thirds. I mean, that is true, but from just a technical perspective, it is the same effect as cropping. So you don't actually have more depth of field. You just have more apparent depth of field when you crop down to that. So, for example, shooting with a higher resolution Sony and then cropping down to like a Micro Four Thirds 2x crop is going to give you the same depth of field effect. So I don't think that's too much of a...
Well, with a 600mm on full frame?
Yeah, that's how depth of field works, right? Mm-hmm. It's the same. It's like the perspective conversation, but it's the same optically. It's just when...
It's deja vu, this, isn't it?
Yeah, it's just when you crop it down, the apparent depth of field doubles, right? When you go to a 2x crop, because you're blowing it up. And so that actually shouldn't be a factor if you're considering what sort of platform to shoot. Yeah, it is helpful because you get full resolution and you're not cropping down, but it does have the same optical effect. It's just cropping down from a higher res starting point in the first place on full frame. I
must admit, when I was saying it, I was thinking to myself, I hope I'm not wrong about this.
No, you're wrong about that. For the same reason you're wrong about perspective.
We're not going to talk about that, though.
Yeah. The other thing is, the reason why super telephoto lenses are more susceptible to chromatic aberration, just because they're that long. I think it's something called a secondary spectrum of light, which causes chromatic aberration. The secondary spectrum is just much larger. And chromatic aberration is when you have different colors not meeting properly, or Jason Lane is probably throwing things right now, but so that's always going to be an issue with a lot of super teles, but it really depends on what you're photographing and how harsh the light is and how high contrast your edges are. But having said that, as far as birding goes, I mean, I can't do it, man. Manual focus, it is so frustrating for birds in flight for exactly what you talk about. So back in the day when I used to shoot with my 5D, what I would do is just set up very specific autofocus settings to help me track birds in flight. And there were ways to do that, which was nice. And these days, pretty much the only autofocus lens I still own is one that I reserve pretty much for birding. It's a Canon EF 400mm f5.6L, which I've had for ages. And I pretty much just only use that for birding. But these days I have it on a Metabones adapter that I put on my Sony, and it works it works fine. I shot puffins with it last summer when we were traveling in Canada. So I don't know. I just find it too frustrating to try to shoot birds in flight with a manual focus lens. But the thing you said about it training the skills, I think is super relevant, because one thing that I do find is when I'm auto-focusing on birds in flight, that ability to kind of pre-focus in roughly the distance that the bird is and then let autofocus do the rest, that helps a lot, because what you don't want is exactly what you were describing, which is for the autofocus to hunt between the background and the subject, which can happen a lot, especially, as you say, if the bird goes from, say, sky in the background to like trees or mountain in the background, then the autofocus just goes, yeah, what's going on here? But autofocus systems have improved so much that this is one area that I would be like, unless you just want the masochism, or really want to mess around with cool, cheap super-teles, like if you actually want to go birding, stick with autofocus is my recommendation.
Yeah. Yeah, my only autofocus lens is a Sigma, I think it's a 120 to 400, and it sits on a Nikon D500. And that's the only thing that camera and lens ever get useful. Yes, exactly. I have a dedicated birding setup exactly like that, with the adapter and the 400. I mean, I will say that the Nikkor ED lenses I think most of them are AIS, are pretty good, but then the 300 4.5 comes to mind, but in my opinion, 300 is too short for birding. Yeah. Unless you're shooting like only, great blue herons and big ass egrets and stuff. Yeah. Big birds or small birds that are very close. Yes, exactly. No, but even then, the minimum focus on a lot of super-teles is not great. So the one that I have, at least, if the bird is super close within, I forget what the minimum focus is, but if the bird is super close, then like you need an extension tube, which is dumb. That reminds me, must be about 5-6 years ago, when I had the Tamron 200, 300 2.8. I just decided I got plenty of extension rings, and I decided to go out into the garden, use it as a macro lens, with about six rings on it, something like that, and it was brilliant. I mean, apart from the fact, like, you could only actually do it for, minutes before your arms, you couldn't, well, for me at least anyway, just having so much weight so further forward, and also having to support everything in such a way that you weren't going to put too much strain on the joints between the lens and the camera. But I got some really good shots, like of bees on flowers and things like that. So it was it worked incredibly well. I mean, that's one of those things. You get some kind of lens. Some lenses, the closer you focus, then the less sharp they are, because there are some limitations in a lot of lenses. And I was thinking to myself, well, a 300mm lens, using it as a macro with tons of extensions, surely this is going to be really poor, but it wasn't. It was absolutely brilliant. Man, I just want it every day. Did you get a similar kind of magnification at that point? That you would with like that you would with like a normal, say, 50mm macro lens or 100mm macro lens? I didn't really notice, to be honest, and I can't remember whether I was doing it on the Sony or a Micro Four Thirds either. Yeah, because I mean, it just, one thing that always confuses me. I don't shoot a lot of macro anyway, but one thing that always confuses me is like, when I use extension rings on certain lenses that have longer minimum focusing distances, and then I get closer, I then realize that the actual magnification in practice is not as good as like a shorter lens with a much closer focusing distance. And so you got the focal length, which kind of zooms in, so to speak. I'm doing air quotes here. But then that's combined with the focusing distance to then give you the actual magnification, right? And so sometimes you're like, oh, longer lens, I'll use that for a close-up or a macro shot with extension tubes, but then you still don't get close enough to match the kind of magnification of a proper macro lens. I don't know if that makes sense. Yeah. I can't remember, and I have no plans of doing anything like that ever again. Yeah, that's fair enough. Plus, I guess you would lose a lot more light, right? Because it's already going to be a slower lens. So once you got rings on it, it's gonna, when you get up close,
you're probably wide open. You're effectively at like an f11 or f16 level of light.
Yeah, but it was definitely. I mean, I was shooting in bright light at 2.8, so tiny depth of field as well. But that is something I remember seeing that for the first time in action when I was using a Tamron lens, and as I was getting closer and closer, and to focusing on closer things, I could see my shutter speed dropping. And I was thinking, or the effective f-stop was effectively changing as it goes along, which is the first time I'd really noticed that happening. Right. I think we've probably done our emails for this week. So let's start to wrap things up. And I think the first thing I need to do is to say thank you to those people that have made donations to us since we were last on, and I think the first person, or did we already do this one? I'm going to say it again, if or not, and that's Cheyenne Morrison. Three coffees, because that really lifted my spirits, and nice to actually hear some discussion about lenses. I don't know what he's going to make of the first 20 minutes of this show. Then Mike Epstein, thank you very much.
More interesting than the last 20 minutes.
Yeah. You don't really do birding, do you, John? You can tell me.
No, you know why? Because I like birds. I actually really, really like birds. That's why I don't do bird photography, because I actually get to look at them and enjoy them and not fart around with lenses. Yeah. Gigantic, awkward, stupid lenses. I actually like birds. So
does that mean you hate pigeons?
No, pigeons are great. I have them.
But you photograph them a lot.
Yeah, no, pigeons are great because I have them under my control. I have them all under my control. They do what I ask them to do. But no, I love birds. So I have a pair of binoculars that are, they're not super high end. They're Nikon Monarchs, which are not crazy expensive. But when I thought I was going to die earlier this year, I figured I'd get a pair of binoculars so that I could do some birding before I kick the bucket, because I love doing it so much. But the reason I don't do bird photography is because I love birds. Because I want to actually be able to enjoy actually looking at the birds and not screwing around with whatever camera's in front of my face. So it's just,
that totally makes sense.
Yeah. So as much as I love birds, I have no desire to photograph them, because there's any bird that I think I can photograph, somebody can photograph it better. And there's no need for me to photograph birds, therefore, because somebody can do it better than me and I don't have to do the work.
So. I totally agree with that. I wouldn't say I'm a bird lover. I enjoy, I like birds, and I like photographing birds. I wouldn't go out my way to just watch birds, but I tend to look at. I think it's the sport of capturing a wild animal. I mean, this is why people go out with guns into Africa and into the woods and stuff like that, which is not my thing in the slightest. But I do that with photography, and I think I think there's possibly some similarities there. That's my way of doing it.
I'm sure for some people that's there. As a person who really enjoys guns, I have no desire to kill animals with them. And I have no desire to spend any time trying to photograph birds when I could just be enjoying the same environment as them, rather than, you know what I mean? But I get it. I think you're right. I think for some people it is a sporting activity, right? And to kind of like walk away with that trophy of having, accomplished it is, I can understand that. I can totally understand that.
And I totally get your perspective there, Johnny, too, because it's the same reason why I never bring a camera when I go fishing. I just have no interest in doing fishing photography. I just want to be in the moment.
Right, exactly.
And fishing while I'm there. And if I catch a huge fish, I use my phone and take a photo of it. That's fine. It's
right. Yeah, it's about being in the moment.
Totally. So, and that's going back to the sporting element of it. Capturing a crisp well-composed, manually focused bird in flight, the feeling you get from that. And by the way, I forgot to mention that one of the big advantages of manually focusing wildlife is the fact that you're already composed. That's part of the process to compose the shot. So the bird is going to be in the correct place, not where the autofocus points are that you've set up. So you don't crop after. You just get the shot right. Well, that's the idea. That's what I strive to do. But so when you actually achieve those shots, you're showing it off to your friends and say, "Look at this photograph I've got here," and I'm like really, really proud of it. And they say, "Well, I've got 600 like that." I don't care. I've got my one shot like this, and it's better than all your 600 as far as the way it makes me feel, and that's all that mattered. So there we go. Anyway, we want to say thank you to, and we've already read out an email, Gary Florzak. And he says, keep up the good banter. Barry Carr donated to us. Then Hong Lee says, thanks for providing a weekly. We're not really doing that at the moment. Weekly. Oh, what on earth is that? Rebellion. That's with a capital R as well. Feast of Views on encased meats. Automotive classics from Detroit and dubious English interpretations of foreign cuisine. That's pretty much us. And then Lawrence done. So thank you very much, Lawrence, as well. So that's the people that have donated to us since last time. Let's do some shout outs. Perry, have you got any shout outs?
I do not have any shout-outs off the top of my head.
Okay, Johnny?
I'm sure I do. I should have written them down, though.
Yeah, and I'm in the same boat. It's like 10 to 12 in the evening, which is... Yeah, I should be asleep now. So I'm sorry if I should have shouted out to you, but I've now forgotten. Perry, how about emails and things like that? Not emails. How can people look at the things that you do outside of this podcast?
I was going to say, you want me to give my email address? You can find me on...
I'll just give it out later for you.
You can find me on Instagram and Flickr at PeruABC7. And now that I have Fixer, hopefully I will actually have some photographs in the next couple of days or so.
Okay, and same for you, Johnny.
I'm not posting anything. Don't bother looking for me online. But you can go to classiclensespodcast@gmail.com. If you want to send us an email, go to classiclensespodcast.com. If you want to find the podcast, find information about the podcast, find podcast swag, t-shirts, underwear, hats, beanbag chairs. We got it all.
Has anybody actually bought the underwear yet? Have we sold an underwear?
Oh, yeah.
Oh.
No, Dan Tamarkin bought underwear, and Mahalo got his underwear this week. I think they came from Latvia. They took like a month. Because they assemble them in Latvia, probably because everybody's too embarrassed to assemble them in the U.S. or elsewhere in respectable countries. No, Latvia is perfectly respectable. I'm kidding. So anyway, buy some swag, buy a hat, buy a beanbag chair to sit in, buy all that stuff. We have all that stuff. Buy some underwear. We have all that stuff. What else? Instagram. Best Vintage Lens. Check them out. Photos with amazing vintage lenses. I wonder have they ever done any bird photography? Vintage lens bird photos.
There's occasionally been some wildlife photography in there.
Yeah,
they could doing the challenge really on wildlife.
They should have a wallaby challenge. They should have a wallaby challenge.
Wallabies, yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah. So I just realized
non-Australian wallabies.
No, that would be boring. Non-Australian wallabies. Easy. Yeah, right. They need to be not in Australia.
Or wallaroos. Wallaroos. Actually. No kangaroos, no wallabies. Wallaroos.
Wallaroos only. Yeah. Wallaroo photography contest. I will put a link in. I will add to our links of unofficial sponsors. I will add the Wallaby Company. So if you need to buy a wallaby, you can look in our links and you can find a wallaby right there. So another important reason to visit the podcast website.
Excellent. Okay, well, I'm on Twitter as Simon4. I'm on Instagram as Simon Forster Photographic. I have a website which is called simonforsterphotographic.co.uk, where you can buy lots of lens caps. And I think that's just about it. Our music is by Kevin MacLeod of Incompetech.com. It's called Octo Blues. And that's it. So I hope you've enjoyed this week's show. And if you can, be like Carl.